They got elected. They figured out how to dope the system. They're using the system, and they're fucking you as men. You know, what is MGTOW? Men going their own way. When you think back, right? MGTOW, is it the opposite of feminism? No. Right? You look at your enemy and you go, it's trying to kill me, but is it necessarily an ideological opposite? Is MGTOW the opposite of feminism? Is it about destroying women? No, it's not. Is it about changing, fundamentally changing or destroying women? No. It's about letting women, making women be themselves by taking away our effort, our goodness out of the relationship. By taking our money, our efforts, our intellect away from them and not giving it to them because they are parasites on a man's good heart, good muscle, good body, and his intellect, his good intellect. They are parasites. Parasites. Feminists are. MGTOW doesn't say we want women to pay for us. MGTOW doesn't say we want everything we can and we can get from women. No, we don't want that. We want to be left the fuck alone. And if we're to choose to be with a woman, it is wanting to have it done so, have that relationship exist without the interference of state or the interference of an organization designed to destroy me. And that will never exist in my lifetime. Never. Because feminism is alive and it is still growing. It is still evolving and showing itself all the time to be more and more of a lecherous, parasitic ideology that feeds off of the blood and souls of men. That is not what MGTOW is. MGTOW is about personal liberation. Personal liberation. So let's step back to the 1850s, the 1840s, the 1830s. Women wanted equal rights, they say. They started off with this concept that they should be free. And they always were free. They just didn't have all the same rights. And we're talking about political rights, like voting, personal property rights. They didn't have that. I've got no problem with that. Have personal property rights. Right? The voting thing, I think, is ridiculous. Right? Because women, I don't believe, are responsible enough to vote. But that's another subject. For the time being, let's just say they got that. But where did they go with it? And how did it start? Women started by doing what they always do. Talking to each other. Gossiping amongst each other. Church groups. Right? The women's knitting club. They found that they had strength in numbers. That is solidarity. That's an idea, right? That is both good and bad. Right? Because people need numbers. People need support. That is why MGTOW is where it is today. But women would get together in groups. Then they started finding ways to control their men. The more power a woman got individually, the more she would start using that to influence her man, to destroy him. Women in the 1850s probably didn't think they were going to destroy men legally and take their money, take their houses, take their retirement, and kick the man out the door to live off of 25% of his prior income while he pays for her life. I don't think that men knew, or women knew, that they would take half of men's shit. They figured it out later, but they started out by forming a group, developing ideas, and then going forward with it. The social engineers pushed this program. They experimented. What worked, what didn't, what could they get away with, what could they do now, what could they do tomorrow, what could they do in 10 years. And that movement grew. That ideology flourished, not because of its own virtue, but because of the energy, the vampirical energy suction it took off of men. Right? It started taking from men. And I can give a great example. my great-grandmother, when my great-grandfather died, took his wealth. My family was extremely wealthy, and she spent it. The joke was, every time Grandma Annie ran out of gas in her car, she'd go buy a new one. My grandfather had 2 airplanes. I was born poor because the money was not handled well. That's what happens when you give an irresponsible being, creature, power. They squander it and destroy it. And that is what happens with men. Women take their money and then they squander and destroy it. Right? So that's taking the man and his value and destroying it, making it worth nothing. MGTOW is the opposite of that. We want men to be empowered, to own themselves, to better themselves and create personal fortune, so that we are self-reliant, rugged, manly individuals. So what is MGTOW now? It is an understanding of our enemy, which defines us, not because it says we're bad, and that's our definition, but by looking at the fruits of that tree, that monster of feminism, you can see who its enemy is, right? It's us. And so if they say men are bad, men must be good, because feminism shows itself to be evil, nasty, vicious, parasitical. MGTOW defines itself by saying, men, we want you to be free. You know, is there at some point going to be MGTOW marches? Possibly. Is there at some point going to be a MGTOW political action committee that lobbies state and federal legislatures, Congress? Maybe. For the time being, it is a small organization of men, loosely knit, who share the desire to be free and to be men. We are at the very beginning of what MGTOW is. It is not a unified ideology. It just says men be men. That's it. You know, but where is it going? The only way for men to be men without having to have this, right, is for feminism to die. And it's not going to die unless it's starved to death. And that is going to mean immense, catastrophic change and conflict between men, between women, and that juggernaut called government. That giant being that is playing God, that wants to tell us what we have to do. And it takes from one side and punishes and gives to another. Not a very good God, is it? What is MGTOW? Men going their own way. Right? We have to get ourselves free. We have to get free of the beast, that thing that lives off of us. Right? And having the rage, the anger. We're men, we're supposed to have rage and anger. It's part of what makes us men, our testosterone, our drive, our desire to live. Right? And ultimately, we conquer. We conquer in the world, and then we take for ourselves the plunder, right? The prize. That used to be women. Now women look at us as the prize. They claim to be that they are the prize, but we're the prize. We're the money, right? We go through and we conquer. We kick the ever-loving shit out of the problem. And then the thing that we think we get as a reward ends up owning us. That is why women must be denied. And that ownership comes through your cock. You put it in their vagina, and they think they own it. They think they own you because they have taken your cock into their pussy. That's it. That creates an ownership. Rubbing genitals together, right? You're rubbing pieces of skin together. Now she owns half of your shit. You're putting your cock in the hole, and now she's going to tell you what to do? Now she's going to own your body? She is sneaky and crafty because she has spent her childhood growing up, learning to manipulate to alter and to change other people's behavior based on her will. And so you're going to, as a man, let a creature such as that own you? Because you're rubbing pieces of skin together? Because some of that skin has nerve endings which are sensitive and it feels good? Now you're going to give yourself body, mind, and spirit over to them? MGTOW says if you want to do that, you go right ahead. But you're no longer MGTOW once you do. You are not going your own way when you are giving yourself what is you to them. What is MGTOW? Right? It is a growing sentiment among men that they need to be themselves. And that we need to identify in society, in our worlds, what is happening and oppose it, deny it, any fashion, any way you can, put it down. I was in a brew pub just yesterday, early. There were 6 nurses sitting at a table. All of them had Bloody Marys and breakfast in front of them. At a brew pub, yes. And 2 of them were men and the other 4 were women. And the one guy is kind of their leader. He's got a beard, nice fella. Always says hi to me. And there was a new guy there, and I asked him who he was and talked to him a bit, and he goes, "Oh, you're her ex-husband." I said, "That is right." The women at the table, once again, absolutely refused to acknowledge me, look up, or look at me, with the exception of one of them who looked at me for a brief second and then put her head right back down on her fucking plate. All of them know who I am. All of them will not face me intellectually. The women cower intellectually because they have no ground to stand on. They could try hurling insults at me. They could try it. They could try spreading lies or rumors. They could try shaming and guilting me. They could try to manipulate me, couldn't they? But they don't have the wit. All they can do is insult, and that's what women love to do. These feminist women, that's one of the ways they do it. But what they need is they need an audience with a man, one-on-one, where they can separate him from the herd. And men, as strong, rugged individuals, manly men, MGTOW, we don't mind facing an enemy one-to-one. But when it's an enemy or a battle of manipulation versus a battle of intellect or a battle of the bodies, men are ill-equipped to fight manipulation. That is why so many women do own them when they rub some skin against them. Little pink nipple, little clit, right? Some labia, and men fall over. That is what MGTOW is against. If you want those nipples, go get them. If you want some pussy, have it. If you want a pretty face and a girl holding onto your arm, have it. But don't give yourself over to them. Don't shut your mind off because your penis wants to play. Don't give your heart to a heartless creature. Feminists are heartless creatures because the moment they don't get what they want or they see they will not own you, they'll start to trash you, they'll cheat on you, they'll steal your shit. If they're married to you, they'll take half your shit or more. And if they get in your head, they'll start to corrode your logic and your reasoning and your thinking. They want it corroded. They want it full of fallacies, weak half-lies. And when we as MGTOW see those, and yes, if you're MGTOW, you see the lies because they stink, because they're bullshit. We can see them now. And we can deny them. And when I see a cuck or a fucking simpleton or a white knight repeating those lies, if possible, I let them know it. Right? There's times when you can't, but geez, every chance I get, I let them know it. I go, "You sound like a bitch." Right? And you'll see men go, "Hey, dude, why don't you take your fucking balls out of your wife's purse, man? You're a puss." And the guy's like, oh no, I've decided to make this decision